No one wakes up one day determined to be manipulated, betrayed, or discarded. And yet, it happens all the time. You do everything right, act with good intentions, trust people, play fair. And in the end, it's always you who loses ground, respect, or power. What almost no one tells you is that this doesn't happen because of a lack of character. It happens because of a lack of understanding of reality. While you follow moral rules that were taught to you, others follow rules that were never spoken aloud. Machiavelli didn't write for villains, he wrote for those who don't want to be used. Are these rules cruel? Yes. Counterintuitive? Very. But they are used against you every day, at work, in relationships, in friendships, and even within your own mind. The world doesn't work as you were promised. It works based on power, perception, and self-interest. And ignoring this doesn't make you virtuous, it only makes you vulnerable. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, always wins in the long run. Those who don't learn this early on end up paying with frustration, resentment, and a life below their potential. The good news is that you don't need to become cruel to stop being naive. You just need to see the game for what it is. By understanding these 10 rules, you stop reacting emotionally and start acting strategically. Not to dominate others, but to avoid being dominated. If you've ever felt like the world is playing dirty while you're trying to be right, this video will change the way you see people, power, and decisions from now on. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul. An invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He begins by recalling something Machiavelli made clear early on. Power is rarely conquered by brute force, but is almost always lost through naivete. Trusting in the goodwill of others seems beautiful, sounds civilized, even gives a high moral sense. But in practice, it is politics guided by reality, not by ideals, that keeps someone standing. Emotions change quickly, alliances change even faster, and whoever builds their stability on the feelings of others has already accepted living on the most unstable ground possible. The end justifies the means when the means is survival itself, and survival requires decisions based on real human nature, not on comfortable speeches. He observes that today someone supports you, tomorrow tolerates you, then resents you, and all this without warning. It is better to be feared than loved, not because fear is beautiful, but because it is predictable. Goodwill is not an asset, it is a variable. And variables do not sustain empires, careers, or lasting respect. Whoever understands virtù and fortuna knows that depending on the mood of others is surrendering half the control to chance. And chance, when it perceives weakness, exacts a high price. So he proposes a silent inversion, building a foundation that doesn't depend on anyone's emotional stability. It's not about becoming cold or paranoid, but about creating self-sufficient structures, skills, systems, reputation, and resources that work even when everyone else turns their back on you. When you need someone, that person controls the pace, the price, and the limits of the relationship. When they need you, the game changes. Dependency is reversed, and with it comes real power. Your own loyal armies aren't formed by asking for favors, but by offering concrete value, continuous utility, and strategic presence. At work, this might mean mastering a skill that few possess, like learning data analysis applied to your sector, high-ticket consultative sales, or strategic negotiation based on real incentives. In business, it's about creating processes that work without a specific partner. In personal life, it's about having enough emotional and financial autonomy not to beg for permanence. An appearance of virtue helps, of course, but it must be sustained by real competence. Because, ultimately, respect is born from predictable usefulness, not momentary sympathy. In practical application, he advises caution with partners who can easily replace you and with friends who smile but resent your ambition. Ambition, incidentally, is often the ultimate test of relationships. When you grow, the weak move away and the opportunists approach. Therefore, alliances should be used as multipliers, never as life rafts. Use collaboration to accelerate, not to exist. Develop constant adaptability. Today, one skill sustains you. Tomorrow, another will be required. Read books that deal with stark reality, such as The Prince, The 48 Laws of Power, or even Think and Grow Rich, but always filtering out excessive romanticism. Invest time in learning something that the market pays well and few master, and not in pleasing those who only applaud while you are harmless. Calculated use of force here means knowing when to say no, when to walk away, and when to go it alone. Because sooner or later, he realizes that those who survive without depending on others are starting to become a nuisance. And that's exactly when the next risk begins to form, almost invisibly, demanding immediate attention. He often says, almost in a calm, warning tone, that small problems never stay small. Machiavelli observed this in newly conquered territories. The fatal mistake is not the great revolt, but the small spark ignored. Instability doesn't announce when it will grow. It tests, whispers, provokes lightly. Whoever waits for absolute clarity to act has already missed the right time. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands accepting that delays strengthen problems. Human emotions tend to rationalize postponement. It's nothing. It will pass. The conflict isn't worth it now. But real human nature shows something else. That which encounters no resistance grows. A weak leader waits. A strong leader intervenes. The end justifies the means when the means is to prevent a detail from becoming a disaster. It's better to be feared than loved in this respect, not as tyranny, but as a clear sign that limits exist and are applied. Virtue and fortuna meet precisely in the speed of response. He who acts early governs the terrain. He who hesitates begins to react. He explains that all instability is born silently. A snide comment, a repeated delay, a subtle break in pattern. At work, someone starts testing limits, delivering less, questioning more, challenging small decisions. In relationships, harmless disrespect arises, frequent irony, changes in behavior. In personal habits, discipline weakens a little. Today, they skip training, tomorrow they abandon the plan. Your own loyal armies are formed when these fissures are corrected immediately, not when they become the norm. Calculated use of force here is not emotional explosion, it is precise intervention. Investigating a partnership at the first sign of a crack, confronting even minor disloyalty, adjusting a habit the moment it starts to slip. Those who act early spend less energy and less reputation. The appearance of virtue is maintained when rigor is punctual and silent, not when it becomes a spectacle. And the faster you act, the less the world notices that there was conflict. In practice, he advises adopting a simple rule. The first sign is always the most honest. If someone tests your limits, deal with it immediately. A firm conversation, a clear adjustment, a defined consequence. If a partnership begins to fail, investigate before investing more time or resources. If a habit threatens your discipline, cut it now, not after the last time. Delay strengthens problems. Action disarms them. This is a decision based on real human nature, not on hope. People respect consistency more than lengthy explanations. Constant adaptability means adjusting course without drama, without excessive justification, without blame. Those who master this law realize something curious. The less you tolerate instability, the less instability appears. And when that happens, stronger relationships emerge, more predictable environments, and paradoxically, new, more subtle tests that demand an even deeper understanding of how to deal with people before they become an emotional or strategic risk. He often explains this law with a half smile, as if he knows he's going to defy expectations. Winning hearts is useful, but trusting them is dangerous. Machiavelli understood that human loyalty is born from emotion, and emotion is volatile, negotiable, and deeply influenced by context. Today, someone admires you. Tomorrow, if they feel threatened, they might sabotage you without any guilt. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins when one accepts that affection is not a structure. The end justifies the means when the means is to create stability in an emotionally unstable world. People like those who make them feel good, but they follow those who convey security. Better to be feared than loved doesn't exclude love, it just doesn't depend on it. Virtù and fortuna balance each other when you inspire support, but anchor your survival in something solid. Competence, position, control of resources, and clarity of limits. Winning hearts reduces resistance, trusting them hands over the steering wheel. He describes the necessary duality with surgical precision. First, win hearts to stabilize the environment. Be polite, respectful, fair, and predictable in your rules. An appearance of virtue acts as a social shield. People like those who seem honest and approachable. This reduces unnecessary conflicts and creates room for maneuver. But in parallel, never depend on these feelings to survive. Affection is fragile, fear is predictable, structure is unbreakable. Your own loyal armies don't sustain themselves because they like the leader, but because they trust in their ability to maintain order and direction. At work, this means being pleasant to deal with, but technically indispensable. In business, it's building processes that work even if someone leaves. In relationships, it's loving without losing emotional or financial autonomy. Calculated use of force here means knowing when to end conversations, set boundaries, or walk away without a scene. In practical application, he recommends an almost invisible balance. In relationships, be affectionate, but maintain clear boundaries. Don't confuse love with self-abandonment. In friendships, be generous, but never count on automatic reciprocity. Those who expect too much tend to be frustrated. In personal development, self-love is not an excuse for weakness, but fuel for discipline. Reading books that deal with human behavior without romanticism, such as The Prince or Ego is the Enemy, helps to calibrate expectations. Making decisions based on real human nature avoids unnecessary disappointments. Constant adaptability means adjusting the level of closeness according to the other person's behavior, not according to promises. When you master this law, you realize that respect grows silently, while affection comes as a consequence, not as a basis. And it is precisely at this point that subtle signs of emotional or strategic threat emerge, requiring an even firmer response before they take shape. He introduces this law bluntly, almost as a survival warning. The danger you tolerate today is the ruin that destroys you tomorrow. Machiavelli observed that no threat remains small. It merely awaits the right moment. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands recognizing that time works in favor of the problem, never the solution. A disloyal advisor becomes a traitor, an ambitious rival becomes an enemy, a toxic friend becomes a saboteur, and it all begins with minimal signs that many prefer to ignore. The end justifies the means when the means is to prevent something small from gaining critical mass. Better to be feared than loved here means not allowing respect to be gradually eroded. Virtù and fortuna reward those who act early when the cost is low and the margin for error still exists. The tolerated threat learns, the confronted threat retreats. He teaches how to identify dangers before they become visible to everyone. Subtle changes in tone of voice, repeated inconsistencies, strategic delays, small acts of disrespect that accumulate. People rarely change their intentions overnight. They rehearse. Proper and loyal armies depend on this fine reading of human behavior. Calculated use of force means acting decisively, but without spectacle, eliminating threats silently, efficiently, and proportionally. It's not about emotional outbursts, it's about precision. Acting before others notice preserves reputation and control. An appearance of virtue is maintained when conflict is resolved behind the scenes, not when it becomes a public spectacle. And here a harsh rule emerges. Danger is not given a second chance. Forgiveness is noble in private morality. In power, it is often fatal. Ambition doesn't disappear, it just learns to wait. In practice, he recommends trusting the first sign more than the later explanation. In relationships, the first warning is almost always the truest. In friendships, envy and contempt reveal who a person really is when no one is watching. At work, that colleague who tries to subtly surpass you won't stop out of empathy. In self-discipline, small bad habits, harmless procrastination, frequent excuses, shape destiny more than big decisions. Decisions based on real human nature prevent impending tragedies. Constant adaptability means adjusting course quickly, cutting ties when necessary, and moving on without excessive guilt. Those who master this law realize something unsettling. The sooner they eliminate threats, the clearer the path becomes, and the clearer it becomes who stays by their side only while it's convenient, preparing the ground for the next lesson on loyalty and power. He presents this law with uncomfortable frankness. Loyalty is not born of kindness, but of strength. Machiavelli went straight to the point when he stated that it is safer to be feared than loved when one cannot be both. And this is not gratuitous cruelty, but an accurate reading of real human nature. Isolated kindness often generates a perverse effect. The other person begins to see you as a given, and what is given a given loses value, loses urgency, loses respect. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, recognizes that love is voluntary, while fear, understood as respect for the consequences, is reliable. The end justifies the means when the means is to build stable, not merely pleasant relationships. Virtù and fortuna favor those who understand that the correct order of power begins with the ability to impose limits, not with the attempt to be liked. Without power, affection becomes a weak currency. He details the sequence that almost no one accepts, but everyone experiences. First power, then respect, then trust, loyalty, and only lastly, affection. When this order is reversed, everything crumbles. Excessively kind people end up being ignored, devalued, or manipulated, not because they are bad, but because they failed to establish consequences. Loyal armies of their own are formed when rules are clear and consistently applied. Calculated use of force here does not mean aggression, but predictability. Clear rewards for loyalty, proportionate punishments for betrayal. The appearance of virtue remains important, but underpinned by real firmness. Speaking more slowly, saying less, acting calmly, this communicates authority effortlessly. Decisions based on real human nature avoid the classic mistake of confusing empathy with submission. In practical application, it guides simple yet powerful adjustments. In relationships, people stay because of respect, not empty emotional promises. In friendships, be someone difficult to manipulate, kind but not malleable. At work, competence combined with consistency creates a kind of silent, almost automatic loyalty. Developing rare skills, keeping promises, and maintaining clear standards is worth more than being nice all the time. Reading. The Prince, attentively and observing leaders who maintain stable teams, helps internalize this logic. Constant adaptability means knowing when to toughen up and when to soften up without excessive guilt. When this law is applied, something curious happens. Loyalty arises without begging, without demands, and precisely for that reason, it needs something even more subtle to maintain itself, opening space for the next strategic layer of the game. He approaches this law with the calmness of someone who knows that reputation decides battles before they even begin. Machiavelli observed that people judge by what they see, not by what is true, and this is not a moral flaw, it's human nature. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires accepting that your public image weighs more than your private intentions. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve power and freedom of action. The appearance of virtue functions as a shield, visible honesty, apparent discipline, a well-communicated sense of justice. Virtù and fortuna meet when you understand that you don't need to be moral all the time, but you need to appear trustworthy always. Better to be feared than loved remains valid here, because fear arises from the coherence between image and consequence. Whoever appears upright and acts firmly reduces attacks before they are even considered. He explains the duality with almost surgical precision. To the public, you are honest, compassionate, loyal, disciplined, someone who inspires immediate trust. Behind closed doors, you are strategic, calculating, emotionally neutral, and realistic. Your own loyal armies only exist when the leader doesn't confuse backstage with stage. Calculated use of force means choosing when to be firm and when to be gentle, always with clear intention. People trust consistent illusion more than unstable truth. A well-built reputation can even protect you from tough decisions that had to be made in silence. Never reveal your calculations, never over-explain your gentleness. Those who understand true human nature know that excessive transparency weakens authority. Constant adaptability here means adjusting your discourse to the audience without losing internal control of the strategy. In practice, he advises protecting your reputation as a strategic asset. At work, maintain an impeccable professional demeanor, even when difficult decisions need to be made behind the scenes. In relationships, be seen as fair and balanced, even if internally you know when to step back or set definitive boundaries. In business, communicate high values while structuring contracts, metrics, and guarantees that don't depend on the goodwill of others. Reading works like The Prince or studying leaders who survived crises shows how image saves time, energy, and avoids conflict. Decisions based on real human nature prevent naivete. People want leaders who seem better than them, not equal. When this principle is well applied, the environment becomes more predictable, and that's precisely why loyalty begins to reveal itself not through words, but through people's reaction to your silent strength. He begins this law almost as a lucid outburst. No one remains loyal because you are too kind. They remain because you are strong, competent, and useful. Machiavelli had already understood that pleading weakens while firmness organizes. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, shows that people follow those who transmit structural security, not those who beg for understanding. The end justifies the means when the means is to avoid the slow erosion of authority. Kindness creates momentary affection. Strength creates lasting commitment. Better to be feared than loved reappears here as logic, not as a threat. Virtù and fortuna align when you don't depend on constant approval to act. Your own loyal armies form around those who decide, uphold decisions, and do not back down in the face of discomfort. True authority is not explained, it is perceived. He delves into the psychology behind this with elegant coolness. People respect what they trust, and they trust those who demonstrate emotional control, predictability of rules, and practical competence. Giving too much creates a sense of entitlement, not loyalty. Over-explaining conveys insecurity. Calculated use of force means establishing clear boundaries calmly, not aggressively. Be valuable, but not overly available. The appearance of virtue remains important, but now underpinned by firm standards. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that extreme dependence breeds fear and resentment, not loyalty. Constant adaptability requires knowing when to withdraw, when to toughen up, and when to reward, always judiciously. People follow force over abstract morality because force reduces uncertainty. In practical application, it guides simple yet powerful actions. In relationships, people stay with those who are centered, confident, and don't react in an uncontrolled way. In friendships, be a stabilizing force, not someone who absorbs chaos. At work, competence combined with calmness and high standards creates natural followers. Reward loyalty in public, punish betrayal in private. This preserves image and reinforces hierarchy. Speak less, observe more, keep emotions under control. Reading The Prince carefully, especially the chapters on leadership, helps to understand how authority is built in silence. When this law is applied, loyalty ceases to be asked for and begins to be offered, and curiously, this reveals who was only around while you were begging, preparing the ground to understand something even greater, the role of fortune and personal preparation. He presents this law as an unsettling yet liberating reminder. Fortune governs half of life, but the other half is under your command. Machiavelli didn't promise total control of the world. He promised preparedness. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, begins when someone understands that luck favors the prepared, not those who wait for justice. The end justifies the means when the means is building resilience before chaos. The river metaphor is clear. When the waters are calm, the imprudent relax. When they overflow, everything is swept away. Virtu and fortuna meet when you build dams while no one is looking. Better to be feared than loved here translates to being respected for your internal predictability. You don't panic, you don't improvise under pressure, you don't outsource decisions. Your own loyal armies begin within: discipline, clarity, and self-control. He details preparation as a silent act, saving before the emergency, learning skills before the opportunity, training discipline before life demands it. This is the calculated use of force applied to oneself. In a fast-paced world, be decisive. In a cautious world, be strategic. In a chaotic world, be realistic. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that rigidity kills more careers than mistakes. Constant adaptability is the ability to change strategy without losing identity. Powerful people don't wait for the tide to turn in their favor. They assume it will turn against them. That's why they build redundancies, alternative sources of income, transferable skills, networks of contacts before they need them. An appearance of virtue helps socially, but real preparation saves when no one is applauding. In practical application, he recommends acting like someone who expects to be tested. Learn something new even when everything seems stable. Sales, negotiation, leadership, technology applied to your field. Read The Prince, focusing on the relationship between audacity and timing, and complement it with practical readings like Anti-Fragile by Nassim Taleb to understand how to grow with chaos. Seize opportunities without excessive hesitation, because fortune rewards speed and audacity more than perfection. Hesitation kills more dreams than failure. When someone masters this law, they realize that they don't control what happens, but they control whether they are prepared for what happens. And this completely changes how people relate to them. opening space for loyalty born from real value, not illusion. He introduces this law with an almost disconcerting realism. Lasting loyalty is not born from beautiful promises, but from concrete benefits. Machiavelli understood that people follow those who improve their living conditions, not those who feed vague hopes. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, requires managing expectations with surgical precision. The end justifies the means when the means is to avoid collective frustration and silent resentment. Promising less and delivering more creates a powerful asymmetry in your favor. Virtù and fortuna align when value is perceived in everyday life, not in speeches. Better to be feared than loved reappears here as coherence. The fear of losing what you offer unites more than any inspiring speech. Your own loyal armies are maintained when they know exactly what they gain by remaining. He dismantles three truths that almost no one accepts. First, people remember benefits, not intentions. Second, loyalty changes when circumstances change, and pretending otherwise is dangerous naivete. Third, people remain loyal when they fear losing something real. Calculated use of force means transforming value into habit, not a one-off event. A mentor who generates measurable growth, a leader who brings concrete security, a partner who stabilizes the environment, these don't need to beg for loyalty. The appearance of virtue helps communicate this value, but it is consistent delivery that sustains it. Decisions based on real human nature avoid the mistake of promising the world and delivering crumbs. Constant adaptability here means continuously reinforcing your value, even when everything seems comfortable. In practice, it advises offering tangible and measurable value. At work, be the person who solves critical problems. In business, create real opportunities. In friendships, be someone who opens doors, not just consoles. Manage expectations strategically. Don't overpromise, surprise with delivery. Reward loyalty in public and discipline disloyalty in private. This maintains order without humiliating. Understanding real motivations, security, recognition, money, influence, belonging, avoids emotional mistakes. Let people depend on you, but not too much. Total dependence breeds fear. Balanced dependence breeds influence without hatred. When this law is applied, exaggerated promises disappear, inconsistency is corrected, and silent strength becomes evident, preparing the ground for the final rule, where preparedness ceases to be an advantage and becomes survival. He concludes this cycle of laws with a cold and liberating truth. Fortune controls half of life, but the other 50% belongs to those who prepare. Machiavelli never promised eternal stability. He promised advantage to those who anticipate chaos. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, begins when someone builds dams while the river is still calm. The end justifies the means when the means is not being surprised. When everything is going well, the weak relax. When the river overflows, everything is lost. Virtù and fortuna meet in invisible preparation, done far from applause. Better to be feared than loved, here, translates into respect for those who are never caught off guard. One's own loyal armies do not arise in conflict. They are built long before it, in silence. He explains how powerful people think. They assume that favorable conditions don't last, that people change, that rivals attack, and that chaos is inevitable. Therefore, they develop strength before they need it. They build alliances early, hone skills before the competition, and secure resources before the crisis. Calculated use of force means planning multiple scenarios, not just the ideal one. Weak people plan one path, strong people plan 5. Decisions based on real human nature recognize that life rarely respects single plans. Constant adaptability means knowing when to be bold, when the world demands aggressiveness, and when to be cautious. This strategic fluidity is what separates those who react from those who govern their own circumstances. In modern application, he recommends concrete preparation. At work and in business, be ready for layoffs, market changes, leadership changes, and unexpected opportunities. In relationships, prepare for emotional conflicts, external pressures, and financial instability. In life, preparation means saving money, learning transferable skills, building networks early, and maintaining health as a strategic priority. Reading The Prince. With a focus on anticipation and complementing it with practical works on strategy and resilience, strengthens this mindset. Strengthen your position discreetly. Power grows in silence. When someone masters this law, they stop hoping for luck and start acting as if it were going to turn against them. And it is at this point that all previous knowledge ceases to be theory and becomes a living tool. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that these rules aren't about becoming cold or cruel. They're about stopping being naive in a world that doesn't reward naivete. Knowledge alone changes nothing. What changes things is application. The question isn't whether Machiavelli was right or wrong, but where are you still trusting too much, tolerating too much, or expecting too much? In what area of your life are you paying the price for ignoring real human nature? At work, in relationships, in decisions you postpone for fear of conflict? Now think honestly. What would happen if you started acting with more preparation, less emotion, and more strategy? If you stopped asking for permission and started building silent strength? If instead of waiting for recognition, you became impossible to ignore? Politics guided by reality, not ideals, is not about manipulating people. It's about not being manipulated by illusions. The end justifies the means when the means is living with autonomy, respect, and control over one's own destiny. These laws only work for those who have the courage to apply them in their daily lives, in the small details, in the decisions that no one sees. So I ask you, which of these rules has confronted you the most today? Which one do you realize has already been used against you? Write it in the comments. This helps to clarify and strengthen your decision to change the game. And if you want to continue learning to think strategically, understand power, human behavior, and decisions that really work in the real world, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. Here, you don't learn what sounds good, you learn what works.